West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Judge Eileen Cannon, in another bizarre paperless order, inviting two pro-Trump groups and then one group that's just upholding what the law is on this issue about the appointment of Special Counsel Jack Smith. You know, I've called it like a tinfoil hat kind of argument that Donald Trump's making here, because this has been decided over and over again in many other courts. It's a legal issue. It doesn't require a hearing. And in fact, it's a legal issue that a judge sua sponte on their own initiative should just rule on and just say, no, I'm rejecting it out of hand right away. Trump argues that Special Counsel Jack Smith's appointment was unlawful, claiming that Jack Smith, because he's not a technical officer, cannot have been selected through the Department of Justice process and selected by Merrick Garland, that it required Senate confirmation. And as a result, the entire criminal case is against Donald Trump is unlawful and needs to be dismissed. And also, because Special Counsel Jack Smith was not Senate confirmed, the appropriations, the funds that go to the DOJ that then go to pay for Special Counsel Jack Smith are improper and unlawful, and as a result, the entire case against Donald Trump should be dismissed. That's Trump's argument. Judge Eileen Cannon, rather than just dismissing it, is holding a day and a half of oral argument at the end of June on that issue. And then she's saying that she's going to be holding half a day to address Jack Smith's request that the conditions of Trump's release be expanded to prevent him from lying that he's currently the victim of attempted assassination attempts by the Department of Justice and the FBI, and that he was the victim of an assassination attempt during the Mar-a-Lago search, simply because one of the documents turned over in discovery in the Mar-a-Lago criminal case was the standard use of force policy that exists in every single search warrant that gets executed across the country. But Trump says, look, lethal force. It uses the words lethal force, and as a result, they tried to kill me. They're coming after me. They're trying to kill me. It's the most ridiculous argument in the world. It's not even an argument. It's just yet another one of the it's rigged, whining. They're trying to kill me. Join my war. It's just his kind of loser whining attack on our justice system types of stuff. But look, Judge Eileen Cannon's entertaining it. She's already done enough stuff to kick the trial out indefinitely, so there's not going to be the trial before her. There's really nothing Jack Smith can do right now because there's no final order. I mean, yes, you could potentially seek a writ with the 11th Circuit, but it's the path to doing that would likely result in Jack Smith not prevailing because there's not a final order. And if Jack Smith loses before the 11th Circuit, that loss will forever prevent him from removing Judge Eileen Cannon. because once you lose there, you're not going to be credible if you attempt to do it again. So, he's waiting patiently for a final order. And, and look, I know there are people who are saying, look, Judge Eileen Cannon she's outmaneuvered and outplayed Jack Smith. That's like saying an umpire who calls a ball when it's a strike has outmaneuvered the batter. I mean, the judge, the umpire, you're supposed to call balls and strikes, and so it's not like the batter's being outmaneuvered per se. She's not following the law, but once again, we see another example where the norms and the good faith and our system is based on the idea that federal judges are accomplished, smart, intelligent people. And yes, they may have a little political bent, but they have life-term appointments. They're supposed to put that aside. And when they wear that robe, they're supposed to understand the august nature of their responsibilities. And not with Judge Eileen Cannon. That would be a massive understatement. And federal judges have discretion over their scheduling. You can't reverse them moving things around like that. And the lesson that she learned when she was reversed by the 11th Circuit the first time is, if I never make a ruling, I'll never get reversed. So let me just turn my courtroom into a circus. I'll get the support from the MAGA lawyers. In fact, let me invite the MAGA lawyers in for a party in my courtroom. We could all have an argument together. They'll get my back, and that's where she's going with this. Popok, what do you make of it? I mean, I know we talked a lot about it. What do you make of it?
Yeah, no, I'll just throw my 2 cents in there quickly. First of all, there's been recent reporting of about a dozen or so fellow members of the Southern District of Florida, which I am also a member, in the courts there, who've come forward and have said anonymously that Judge Cannon usually bends over backwards against defendants in her courtroom. She is notorious, as far as they're concerned, for we kind of call it the hobgoblins of little minds. She gets very over her skis about minute issues. She loses the forest from the trees. This is in her other cases. She has very little experience when it comes to trial. She was an appellate lawyer for the Department of Justice, if you can believe it. Never was a frontline prosecutor trying cases. Tried very few cases before she got this case because of COVID. Almost none in her courtroom, and certainly none about the Espionage Act and obstruction of justice about a former president. And so her normal instincts to side with the prosecutors has gone out the window. And the only thing you can use to explain that is she's not only a member of the Federalist Society, she's gone to these Federalist Society boot camps at universities like the Antonin Scalia Law School that's run effectively by Leonard Leo, who founded the Federalist Society and hosts people like Eileen Cannon. She's gone there during the course of this prosecution, and so I'm sorry, you can only conclude that since she's not doing her normal thing, which is being harsh on defendants, is because, as you said earlier, this seems to be an elaborate tryout for higher office for Eileen Cannon. There's no other way to explain it. And you were kind to her. You said she was reversed once. She was reversed twice before the indictment even came out about her handling of the case. And you're right. She learned all the wrong lessons about how to avoid reversible orders. And the things that she finds interesting are not really interesting at all, because they've already been cited over and over again, both expressly by other appellate courts, other trial courts, the federal system, and even implicitly by the United States Supreme Court, that the special counsel, which replaced, just to do a little historical thing for a minute, prior to the special counsel, there was a thing called the independent counsel. It was a statute. It was created by Congress. It was bipartisan, and it was used. Ken Starr was the independent counsel prosecuting, investigating Bill Clinton and Whitewater and Monica Lewinsky, and Larry Walsh was the independent counsel investigating Reagan for Iran-Contra. That was the Oliver North thing there. And after both of those investigations, the Republicans and the Democrats at the time said, we hate the independent counsel office, and they scrapped the law. They let it lapse and they didn't renew it. it got replaced by what we call the special counsel. Even though he is also independent, it's different than that independent counsel thing that I just described. And it is also a creature of being created by Congress and funded by Congress, and it has rules and regulations about what the Attorney General can and can't do, and how he has to report to Congress ultimately about the ultimate reports and all of that. It's all regulated by Congress. The funding for it is regulated about how it comes out of it and all of that. Aileen Cannon hears there was a Supreme Court case about funding, about a bureau of the government, which was the Consumer Protection Bureau, and even the MAGA was okay with how the Consumer Protection Bureau was funded by Congress. But she immediately wrote a paperless order and said, I would like everybody prepared to comment about this new precedent about funding and a bureau and how it may relate to the special counsel. Like, what are you even talking about? At this point, she's already done the thing that she wanted to do. She's taken this trial off the docket for the American people. They are not going to have the benefit of a exoneration or a conviction of Trump on these issues about, as you said, Espionage Act, stealing America's national defense information and top secret documents, classified documents by a former president. We are not going to have the benefit of that information, that data set, before the November 5th election. She's already done that. The rest of this is just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic at this point. Well, let's use the 23rd for a hearing with a gag order about putting FBI at risk. It's an important issue, but this case has already hit the iceberg and is sinking fast. And unfortunately, Jack Smith, despite all of his brain power and all of his acumen, seems to be has been flummoxed. And there's there's been a little bit of an acting out by a frustrated Department of Justice, even in her courtroom, where they're banging on the table and arguing, and to the point where the judge was like, calm down, just calm down. Well, it's not about that. As my mother would say, when two kids are fighting over the bicycle, it's not about the bike. And the acting out by the prosecutors in the courtroom is not about whatever's going on at that particular moment. It's that they are flummoxed and frustrated by watching her make a mockery of our justice system. And, I don't know what's going on in the minds of the chief judge for the 11th Circuit. I don't know what's going on in the minds of the chief judge of the Southern District of Florida, but they can't be happy with what this is doing, and for the reputation of what was once proud federal district court, of which I proudly called myself a member on the attorney side, of what this is doing in the annals of history about this, how this case was handled by this young, inexperienced Federalist Society Trumper. That's all I can say.
Look, I know how important it was for you when early on I was calling out Judge Aileen Cannon, and you would push back on me, not against Judge Cannon, but you would say, hey, look, Ben, what we really have to be very careful about, though, is this Southern District of Florida has such a proud tradition. And you say, I'm a member of that bar. I mean, we have to believe that she's going to rise to the occasion and recognize the august judges on a bipartisan basis who she sits with and looks around, and the reputation of that courtroom must mean something to her. Like let's just see, and it wasn't coming from naivety. I think we're coming from your love of law and order, and to watch you have to go through the journey of coming to this conclusion that, this is a rogue and corrupt judge, where you vocalize it now in the way you do, notwithstanding the fact that you practice there and how hard it is for you to have to do that for practicing in front of that court for so long. It's kind of like a sad. I don't feel sad for you. It's
right,
like a sad. It's like a sad thing to see.
It is.
That institution be so tarnished, and then our country be so tarnished by these MAGA judges. Look, justice delayed, justice denied.
It is Wednesday, The 12th of June of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, the little Yorkie, our door girl, well, she had to spend the night at the vet's, and we'll be picking her up later on this morning, so we will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid us of these meddlesome priests as we make you a lovely fluffy egg dish with a velvety hollandaise sauce. Oh, so velvety. Yes, our little Yorkshire Terrier, Precious. She's a tiny little thing. Apparently, she has, well, I fear the worst, actually. We had to keep her overnight for observation, x-rays, etc., blood work, etc. She has, I think, Dr. Dickey, our vet, intimated that she has some fairly severe neurological damage, along her spinal column. Thanks. So I don't know what that means. Other than that, he said that they attend to it with pain meds, and it may not be the minoxidil. So when I told him what had happened last week about her sort of being listless, the groomer telling us last Thursday that she had noticed some blood in her stool. Now, I haven't noticed that. She had some loose stuff last week early, but it's been fine now. And so, these come and go. He did intimate that whatever pain regimen that we may be using might not include minoxidil, so we're going to look into it. But we'll see what the blood work is going on with, and hopefully the minoxidil didn't have any effect on her kidneys and liver and all that stuff, because darn. But he also intimated that I think he means that I'll have to carry her around in a carrier. Now, I don't know if that means like for the rest of her life. So I don't know. We'll find out when I call in around 10 o'clock West Coast time and find out what's up. But as I said earlier, that I kind of fear the worst. With little Ginger, Dr. Dickey kept saying everything except, maybe you might want to put her down. And I had this romantic notion, we'll just let her die at home. Yeah, what a terrible thing that poor little doggy had to go through. So, I don't know. I'm a little sad because little Precious is precious. You can't help but love her. She's just a little precious little thing. But she got kind of old recently here too, and I don't know if that's because of some internal organ stuff going on. The pain. Apparently she's been in some pain. Now when I took her off of the minoxidil for 2 days, but then when I saw her, well, the reason her back end has been wavering is because she has no feeling back there, is what Dr. Dickey said. So she kind of walks like a drunken sailor, and that's what she was doing. She was walking like a drunken sailor. Back end kind of collapsing. So I don't know. Darn. Life is so precious, and life is so tragic. Yep. Francoise Hardy passed away. Well, she had throat cancer and 80 years old. So, yeah, my mom's generation, a bit younger than Mom, but, just saying. Jerry West, great basketball icon, longtime Laker player and executive and NBA executive and etc. He passed away too. I just heard that on David's show when David was finishing up. Or, I guess not finishing up, but midway through his show. That's right. So, Life is so beautiful and precious, but boy, can it be tragic and sad and hard, too. Boy, don't we know that. Okay, well, I guess that personal stuff is just overwhelmed me. It just occurred to me before I sat down to get the microphone, excuse me, my microphone and everything ready, that, wow, maybe this thing with Precious might not be one of those things where she's just going to bounce back and come back home and she'll be her, old self. She's going to be her old self, apparently, but not her young self, alas. So, that's sad. I have become attached to her greatly, So I could tell that both dogs didn't take Mom's passing very well. They still mope around. Gunner stands in front of her door still, door to her bedroom, kind of looking in, waiting for her to say, "Come on in, Gunner." She's not there. And we haven't gone to visit, because we would do that too. She'd be, at the hospital for a day. Overnight, the dogs would go with me, and we could at least oftentimes, get to a window where Mom could wave at them and whatnot. So, all of this happening at once. Yeah, it's hard to get into the psychology of an animal, but I just know for myself, it's a big load. Alrighty, well, I apologize for letting the personal intrude so much, but hey, there it is. Speaking of which, just a reminder, next week I will be in Southern California for my mom's celebration of life down there. Then on the 30th, we're going to have one here, but that's on a Sunday, so that won't intrude, and we're going to have it here. So, but next week, I'll be traveling. I'm going to drive down to Southern California. I looked for air flights, and after flying to Seattle, then to Denver, then I think maybe I get to Ontario, or maybe it was John Wayne. I looked at Ontario Airport there in Southern California in the upper desert, which would be a lot closer, and John Wayne. LAX would be out of the picture anyway, but in our little airport of Medford, they only fly to those places like once or twice a week. What? I looked at all flights, and they had no flights available. So the only ones that were available, I'd fly to Seattle, fly to Denver, and one other place, and it took about 12 to 14 hours. Well, hell, I might as well just drive. So that's what I'm doing. So a little bit different, when you're lounging around on layovers at some place for 3 or 4 hours. It's a little different than when you're like driving. You can like sleep, maybe have a drink. Yeah, that's what I do. But so the time involved was just about the amount of time it would take to drive there, and then I would still have to rent a car. And I'm like, forget it, I'm driving. So that's what I'm doing, so it will be taking a little bit of time. So we'll be here on Monday, but not doing a show on Monday. The radio station will be on throughout its duration. And I'm formatting shows and putting it into the automatic queue. And so we'll have a mix of Netroots Radio holiday or personal time programming and the PV channel, that because we have the national feeds coming through there anyway. So in emergencies or in times of need, PV channel allows us to play them, and so we do. And that's what we've done for over a decade, 13 years. Oh, my God. So just as a reminder that the personal does intrude, does it not? Yes, it does. So there you go. All right. why don't we go ahead and give you a rundown on what we have in store for you? I guess I could riff on, the latest, like Hunter Biden getting convicted. That is such a, talk about a travesty of justice. Now, it'd be one thing if the jurors got all of the evidence, like the application to buy the gun was manipulated and filled in later in many cases by the gun shop owner. And I guess maybe the salesperson too. They just checked off some boxes. And so then Hunter Biden is blamed for those checked boxes when those guys put those in. Well, that wasn't presented to the jury. The judge would not allow it. Oh, did we fail to mention that the judge is a Federalist Society MAGA judge? Boy. Talk about corrupting from within and rotting it. And it wasn't Antifa. It wasn't us dirty hippies. Who was it? Yeah. The squares. The button-down white shirt squares with their crew cuts and their Sunday school pedophilia. Effers. Leonard Leo and those ilk. You look at Alito and Martha Ann and you're thinking, they're going to judge us? Give me a break. They sit around clinking around their cocktails and their jewelry, and you know they do. Talking about how they are better than all of we lessers. Oh, the rabble, they don't know. They're just children. They need to be spanked every now and then, don't they? Oh, they do. They do. I have to look at a rainbow flag across a lagoon. Lagoon. Yeah, what kind of worldview calls a artificial lake with those little tiny marinas a lagoon? Give me a break. Some dark Dante-esque worldview, I would think. Yeah, there's levels of hell. There are. And of course, they're in, the higher levels because they are who they are. It just always bothered me, The Jeffrey Clark guy. How dare he judge us? Jeez. This is what happens when people are just not able to socialize. I don't know if it was because they were bullied or they were just, stunted and they didn't know how to socialize as kids and they harbored all this resentment and it's been internalized. They don't know where it began, but it's who they are. Okay. All right. Well, I said I wasn't going to get into, current events, but we did. What do we have in store for you in the Bistro Cafe? Well, Midas Touch guys talking about Cannon's latest efforts to get Trump pretty much off on espionage charges. My God. But Hunter Biden, he's going to be in jail for 25 years. Mark my word. He'll appeal. On the rest of the menu, a federal appeals court upheld the California law banning gun shows at county fairs. Yeah, that'll be appealed to another appellate court, like the Supreme Court. The Virginia NAACP sued a county school board over its reinstatement of Confederate military names to 2 schools. Yeah, we want the old ones back. And the lead singer of the Four Tops sued a Detroit area hospital for restraining him and ordering a psychological exam after refusing to believe that he was one of the Four Tops. Ouch. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where French opposition parties on the left and right are seeking alliances ahead of the snap elections called by President Macron. and the government of the Central African Republic suspended a Chinese mining company's operations in the country, accusing it of cooperating with armed militias. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Well, we did it again, and we're going to forego the particulars that usually comes at this point in the show and tuck into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And it is by the hardworking staff at the Associated Press. A federal appeals court yesterday, Tuesday, upheld California's ban on gun shows at county fairs and other public properties, deciding the laws do not violate the rights of firearm sellers or buyers. The 3-0 decision by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals overturns a federal judge's ruling in October that blocked the laws. The two measures were both written by Democratic Senator Dave Min. The first, which went into effect in January of 2022, barred gun shows at the Orange County Fair, and the other, which took effect last year, extended the ban to county fairgrounds on state-owned land. In his decision last fall, U.S. District Judge Mark Holcomb wrote that the state was violating the rights of sellers and would-be buyers by prohibiting transactions for firearms that can be bought at any gun shop. He said, lawful gun sales involve commercial speech protected by the First Amendment. See how they created lawfare for their devious ends? Well, the appeals court decided the laws prohibit only sales agreements on public property, not discussions, advertisements, or other speech about firearms. The bans do not directly or inevitably restrict any expressive activity, Judge Richard Clifton wrote in Tuesday's ruling. California Attorney General Rob Bonta, who defended the laws in court, hailed the decision. Guns should not be sold on property owned by the state. It is that simple, Bonta said in a statement. This is another victory in the battle against gun violence in our state and country. The suit was filed by a gun show company, B&L Productions, which also argued that the ban on fairground sales violated the constitutional right to keep and bear arms. The appeals court disagreed, noting that there were 6 licensed firearms dealers in the same zip code as the Orange County Fairgrounds, the subject of Min's 2022 law. Ben Finley of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. The Virginia NAACP sued a county school board yesterday, Tuesday, over its reinstatement of Confederate military names to 2 schools, accusing it of embracing segregationist values and subjecting black students to a racially discriminatory educational environment. The school board in Shenandoah County voted 5-1 last month to revert the name of Mountain View High School back to Stonewall Jackson High, and that of Honey Run Elementary to Ashbelly Elementary. The vote reversed a 2020 decision to remove the original names against a backdrop of nationwide protests over racial injustice. The federal lawsuit states that black students compose less than 3% of the school system's population. Plaintiffs include 5 students identified by their initials and described as black, white, and biracial, and their parents. The Associated Press sent an email seeking comment to school board chair Dennis C. Barlow. There's no indication whether they responded here in the article. The NAACP wrote that students will be required against their will to endorse the violent defense of slavery pursued by the Confederacy and the symbolism that these images have in the modern white supremacist movement. For example, the lawsuit said an incoming freshman who was black would be forced to play sports as a member of the Stonewall Jackson Generals, and she would have to wear a uniform adorned with a name and logo that symbolizes hatred, white supremacy, and massive resistance to integration. If the student does not fully participate in school sports or other activities, she may miss out on future opportunities, including playing college sports, according to the lawsuit, which was filed in U.S. District Court in Harrisonburg. The NAACP alleges that the Confederate school names violate the students' First Amendment rights, which include the right not to express a view with which a person disagrees. It also cites the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause, which prohibits racial discrimination in state-supported institutions. Well, we do know that the Supreme Court's docket's going to be unloaded in just a few days so that we can be overwhelmed with their terrible decisions. And I actually think the 14th Amendment will be rescinded by fiat. Staff brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The lead singer of the Four Tops said a Detroit area hospital restrained him and ordered a psychological exam after refusing to believe that he was part of the Motown music group. Alexander Morris, who is black, filed a lawsuit against Ascension Macomb Oakland Hospital in Warren, alleging racial discrimination and other misconduct during an April 2023 visit for chest pain and breathing problems. Hospital staff wrongfully assumed he was mentally ill when he revealed his identity as a celebrity figure, the lawsuit says. The Four Tops started in the 1950s and had such hits as I Can't Help Myself, Sugar Pie Honey Bunch is what is really known, and It's the Same Old Song. Among others, the group was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1990. Morris is not an original member, but he joined the group in 2019. Well, there you go. The lawsuit says a nurse finally believed Morris was in the Four Tops and the psychological exam was canceled. The hospital offered a $25 gift card and an apology, but Morris refused to accept it, the lawsuit says. Morris talked publicly about the incident last year, saying he had returned to Detroit, his hometown, and was being told that I'm insane or schizophrenic. Okay. Well, he wasn't an original member, so I don't know. Maybe he was crazy to think so. I guess not. Well, that brings us to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, Flicker On. I saw The TV Glow is one of those movies that in a world of fast-paced action and twisted subplots reminds you just how much can be communicated with a subtle script, good acting, and minimalist directing. The show follows two characters, Owen and Maddie, beginning in their teens, who become infatuated with a 90s Buffy or Twilight-type TV show called The Pink Opaque. Maddie is gay and ostracized for an alleged groping incident. Owen is just an outsider who, when asked about his preferences, says he just likes TV shows. Both are from abusive and or neglectful families and impressionable. The show has its own legend, following the travails of Isabel and Tara, who were psychically connected in their struggle with Mr. Melancholy in his midnight realm. Reality in this realm have parallels, of course, and desperation is exacerbated when the show is canceled, though its effects on Owen and Maddie, which are very different, continue into the present, where Owen rediscovers it on a streaming service, noting that it was, quote, cheesier than he remembered. To the extent that this one's a 90s period piece, TV's front and center. Shows didn't stream to your phone, of course. It took effort to appointment watch or record them. Maddie passes a VCR tape to Owen at school when his dad won't let him watch. And TVs appear at critical times. A burning one when one character disappears. A smashed one in what looks like a suicide attempt. And yes, one inside a character. Which sounds heavy-handed, but it works. Director Jane Schoenbrun's I Saw the TV Glow is an emotionally evocative coming-of-age and maybe trans-coming-out tale that, if you're adventurous, you'll want to watch more than once. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at Take2MovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Gaines. Arthritis affects more than 1 in 5 adults and is the most common cause of disability in the United States. Dr. Camille Barber is a researcher with CDC's National Center for Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. He's joining us today to discuss ways to control arthritis. Welcome to the show, Camille.
Thank you.
Camille, are there different types of arthritis?
Yes, there are over 100 types. The most common types are osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, gout, and fibromyalgia.
What are the symptoms of arthritis?
Arthritis, which is joint inflammation, can result in pain, stiffness, and swelling in the joints.
Does arthritis affect some people more than others?
Yes, it affects primarily the elderly. It also affects people with chronic conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. And it's also much higher in women compared to men.
What are some strategies for managing arthritis pain?
Now, adults with arthritis may be reluctant to engage in physical activity because of the symptoms that they have, such as joint pain and stiffness. However, we know that there are low-impact types of physical activities, such as walking and swimming, that have been shown to improve function and reduce pain in adults with arthritis. There are also self-management programs that, in addition to these physical activity programs, have different ways to maintain weight and other ways to control your arthritis symptoms.
How can people reduce their risk of developing arthritis?
So as I said earlier, osteoarthritis is the most common type of arthritis, and the best way to reduce your chances of developing it is to maintain a normal weight and avoid joint injury.
Camille, where can listeners get more information about arthritis, including the self-management program?
Listeners can go to cdc.gov/arthritis.
Thanks, Camille. I've been talking today with CDC's Dr. Camille Barber about ways to control the pain caused by arthritis. Remember, although there's no cure, arthritis can be controlled through medical treatment, regular exercise, and weight maintenance. If you suffer from arthritis, talk to a healthcare provider about programs to manage your condition. Until next time, be well. This is Dr. Robert Gaines for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. While new messaging from the Republican National Committee and former President Donald Trump encourages turnout by early, absentee, or mail-in voting, GOP lawyers in Nevada, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Mississippi, and Oregon are simultaneously challenging the rules and legitimacy of mail-in voting. Following years of claiming widespread mail-in voter fraud, Donald Trump implored his followers June 4th to swamp the vote. Quote, "Whether you vote early, absentee, by mail, or in person, we must swamp the radical Democrats with massive turnout." May 20th, the U.S. Supreme Court challenge by GOP candidates to Oregon's mail-in voting failed when the High Court refused the case. June 5th, appeals were heard after Delaware laws permitting a permanent absentee voter list and early voting were struck down in a case brought by the state GOP chair. In Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Mississippi, the GOP is challenging whether ballots with no postmark or date or arriving after Election Day can be counted. Drop boxes also continue to be an issue. The Wisconsin Supreme Court appears poised to restore drop boxes after a previous conservative court banned them. But Wyoming's Secretary of State recently urged county election officials to stop using them while citing no evidence of misuse. An attorney in Oregon's case told the Oregon Capital Chronicle, "Vote by mail is an abomination, and we will fight it every possible way we can." Find more reporting linked at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1936. That was the day Remington Rand President James Rand boasted of a new scheme. He called it the Mohawk Valley Formula. It served as a blueprint for the future of union busting. The National Labor Relations Board called it a battle plan for industrial war. The workers at Remington Rand had walked out on strike in late May after enduring a year of anti-union harassment, threatened plant closures, and firings of top union leaders. The company used a number of dirty tricks during the strike to mislead and demoralize strike forces. In his book, The Last Great Strike, Ahmed White describes the purpose and function of the formula, writing, quote, "The scheme figured in the Little Steel Strike, as several authorities would accuse the steel companies of patterning their response to the steel strike after Rand's formula. It consisted of no fewer than 9 steps, all oriented to employing threatening armed forces, spies, and provocateurs, company-sponsored back-to-work movements, and staged reopenings to terrorize and demoralize strikers. Provoke strikers to violence and discredit them. Then use the specter of violence and pretense of a state of emergency to mobilize opposition to the strike on the part of local police and courts. And finally, announcing that the strike had been broken and that any remaining resistance was the work of an intractable minority hostile to community values and the right to work." The central insight behind the formula was that violence could be used not only to drive workers off the picket lines and paralyze them with fear, but also to turn both the law and political sentiments against unionists while justifying the employer's own conduct and excluding its contempt for labor rights.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 60 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs in the mid to upper 80s. Sunny throughout the day with winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Clear skies overnight with lows in the mid 50s. Winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Then mainly sunny tomorrow. Highs once again in the mid to upper 80s. Winds out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. It looks like we might be getting some cooler weather even than what we're experiencing today, or will experience today. Looks like we might be getting some weather in the low 80s and then in the 70s at the beginning of next week. So we'll see how that goes. I'll be out of town, and maybe Southern California won't be as hot either. We'll see. Grass pollen remains very high. The air quality index is in the good range and has notched down to 17 parts per million. It was in the 30s yesterday. The daytime UV index is very high at level 8, so continue to take care. Barometric pressure is falling at 30.09 inches. Visibility is at 8 miles. And relative humidity is at 67%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 61 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 64 and partly cloudy. Rome is 80 degrees and sunny with a thunderstorm watch. Kabul is 72 and partly cloudy. Hong Kong is 79 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 72 and partly cloudy. Auckland, New Zealand is 54 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 58 degrees and sunny. Chicago, Illinois is 77 degrees and sunny. And New York is 72 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. sir. At the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Empowered by a stunning triumph at the European elections. Well, I don't know how stunning. France's far-right national rally on yesterday hit the national campaign trail with its star leader, Jordan Bardella, promising supporters the largest possible majority at the upcoming parliamentary vote. Opposition parties on the left and the right have been scrambling to form alliances and field candidates in the snap national elections called by Macron after his party suffered a crushing defeat by the far right in the European Parliament vote on Sunday. A win for the National Rally in the national elections. They used to be the National Front, but they thought they'd rebrand. Yeah, well, their win could result in the French far right leading a government for the first time since World War II. You know, the Vichy Nazis. While sharp differences between parties remain on either side of the political spectrum, prominent figures calling for a united front appear to have one thing in common. They do not want to cooperate with Macron. Despite their divisions, left-wing parties agreed late Monday to form an alliance that included the Greens, the Socialists, the Communists, and the far-left France Unbowed of Jean-Luc Mélenchon. Where's that Mélenchon? Leaders have not agreed on who will head the coalition nor on its program. In light of the European polls, politicians on the left are focused on closing ranks to prevent a win for the national rally. For now, they have also vowed not to join forces with Macron centrists. In a joint statement, the alliance called on all forces on the left, including the influential labor unions, to unite behind a new popular front to form an alternative to Macron and to fight against the racist project of the far right. National Rally leader Marine Le Pen is working to consolidate power on the right ahead of the two-round elections on the 30th of June and July 7th. Le Pen's niece, Marianne Maréchal, who won a seat in the European Parliament on Sunday as a member of the rival Reconquer party of Eric Zemmour on Monday, visited National Rally headquarters in Paris to negotiate a far-right alliance. Family ties aside, Maréchal said on Tuesday that Bardella informed her of a change of heart in the National Rally regarding a pact with the Reconquer party. Bardella offered a regrettable explanation against an agreement by saying that Le Pen's party does not want to be associated directly or indirectly with Eric Zemmour, Maréchal said in a statement. Fernand Coena at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The government of the Central African Republic suspended a Chinese mining company's operations in the country, accusing it of cooperating with armed militias, a government decree said. The country's Minister of Mines accused Daking Sarl, S-A-R-L, a Chinese gold and diamond mining company, of intelligence with armed groups, illegal exploitation, illegal introduction of foreign subjects into mining areas, non-payment of taxes, and lack of activity reports in the decree, which was made public over the weekend. Daking Sarl operated in Mangala, a town in the south of the Central African Republic that has been plagued by fighting between the company's armed forces and the Coalition of Patriots for Change, an anti-government armed group. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursday. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver.